Hi there, I'm Andrew Chang. Welcome to About That, the show where we're all about explaining and expanding on the news. Now today, we're taking a look at major sports moments in 2022 that will shape the year to come. But first, I want to talk about what happened at the Bills-Bengals game last night. So, Damar Hamlin, the player in white, number 3.
Several players are down on their knees. Other players are holding hands, praying. You can just see the worried looks on their faces. As soon as we have more, Joe, we'll pass it on up to you guys in the booth.
So NFLer Damar Hamlin, goes for a tackle but collapses, is in critical condition, suffering cardiac arrest. That game was suspended, but it took about an hour for the league to officially postpone the game entirely. And you saw it, right? Like players were distraught, visibly in tears. And there are reports that the league wanted to get the game going again after just a 5-minute break. Now, hits like this happen, right? And sure, it's a reminder of just how brutal the game can be. But it's also raising the question, again, of just how concerned the league is with the well-being of its players. Now, as I said before, today's show is all about sports moments from 2022 that tell us something important about the year to come. And the NFL is one of our topics. But the conversation that you're about to hear with Donnovan Bennett, we did this before last night's hit. So take that into account. But at the very end, we are going to circle back to Damar Hamlin, and Donnovan has thoughts about that too. So, of course, I have Donnovan Bennett joining me right now, Sportsnet host, writer, producer, podcaster with Going Deep. How you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
Good, good. Really nice to have you here. We've got a lot of clips and a lot of material to get through, so let's just get right to it with this.
Suggesting that toxic behavior is somehow a specific hockey problem, or to scapegoat hockey as a centerpiece for toxic culture, is, in my opinion, counterproductive to finding solutions. I don't think it's in the best interest of hockey or Hockey Canada for this organization to be destroyed. I don't think that a mass exit, if all the board were to resign and if all of senior management to be replaced, who would they be replaced with? What will that mean for hockey?
Can you just outline for us, and for Canadians more importantly, what are the 3 top qualities that Scott presents that make him the most effective leader to bring Hockey Canada through this instrumental change? The 3 top qualities that make him the best leader for this.
That's a question that
Madam Chair,
that I would have liked to have
surely your board has discussed this. What makes him the best leader?
What makes the CEO and his management team is a good leader is, first of all, he's got an excellent team in place that is enabling us to be able to make significant change. And I appreciate that some may disagree or may not have that perspective, but I believe we are making significant change for the organization under that leadership.
So obviously a very, very tense moment there within the ranks of Hockey Canada. And just to give you the context, so, of course, the controversy around Hockey Canada really exploded earlier this year when it emerged that it had settled a $3.5 million lawsuit, which alleged that there had been a group sexual assault involving players on Team Canada at the World Juniors dating back to 2018, and then there have been subsequent allegations and controversies branching off of that. You're sort of sitting there nodding your head. I mean, like that clip didn't age well in the sense that the whole board was wiped out. I mean, they really cleaned house.
But that clip didn't age well in the moment, where I felt like, remember those commercials, Want to Get Away? I wanted to lift Andrew Skinner out of that chair because there were no good answers. But I would argue this is not just a Hockey Canada issue. This is a hockey issue, period. How many times on The National have you had to cover stories at various levels, in various countries, of misconduct in this sport in a way that is not to the same level? We're talking about issues in soccer or football and baseball.
And why would that be? What is it so special about this sport?
It is the oldest boys club in sport that we have currently. And I'm a firm believer that absolute power corrupts absolutely. And we give so much power and influence and money and resource to this sport, in some ways without real oversight and with an understanding that it's wrapped up in us as Canadians and Canadian. And so there's so many good values, good moments, good memories that we have from the sport, that everything in the sport must be good. And that allows darkness to happen, where without sunlight, there is no disinfectant. And so these things get built up over time. And what we're seeing is a legacy of boys behaving badly within the sport, that being a rite of passage in the sport, and that being passed on from generation as if it's okay.
Right, and yet, so, I know you would be the first person to say that at the same time, you can't paint everyone with the same
no question
brush, right? That there are good players within
Yes.
the Hockey Canada framework. So can Hockey Canada recover from all of this, kind of as we look forward to the year 2023?
If there's the political will, yes. If there's the intentionality, yes, because you're right. And it's a great point that there are good people in the game, that good lessons can be learned from the game. The people who are going to make the change, not me as a journalist, not people having conversations as an outsider, not understanding the culture, the people who are good within the game, having stand up and say, no, I no longer want to be associated with this sort of conversation with a sport that I love, because there is a culture in hockey, for all of its positives, where you don't go in front of the team. You don't speak out, right? And when we talk about bravery in hockey, I think that's what we need, is some bravery, people within the game to say, I understand that I'm supposed to, because of our culture, deflect any attention to myself and protect everybody else. But in this context, in the long run, you're not protecting the game. You're being part of its demise.
Let's talk about big moment for Canada.
Good ball, Anakubi. Can he keep it in? He does. Some miscommunication. It's in! An own goal! Canada, on this most memorable of days, have put 4 past Jamaica. Canada is going to the World Cup.
Okay, so, I get shivers watching that until I remember what actually happened at the World Cup. No, not that it was all bad. There's a lot of good that happened, but it wasn't all good either.
No, it wasn't. I get shivers watching that because I was there, and I'm still cold. And so as a Canadian with Jamaican heritage, I was watching the Jamaicans freezing, thinking they're thinking more about pepper pot soup right now and not necessarily going to the World Cup. What is amazing for me about that team is, as a Canadian with Jamaican heritage, how so many players on that squad, essentially the entire team, first and second generation Canadians. And so we're playing the world's game. We finally got to a level, again, after 3.5 decades, where we're back playing at the world stage. And it's because, as a country, we have been welcomed, the best and the brightest of the world. And we've given them infrastructure and, resources and, our fandom. And now they represent us on the world stage. What we quickly learned is that the entire world takes this entirely seriously. And it is another level. But you can't run before you walk. I think it's saying something that, for us, it was a celebration just to get there.
Sure.
And by the time we got there, we expected results.
Wanted more,
we
right?
wanted more,
We
right?
wanted more. Yeah, okay, so let me ask you about that, because I remember listening to a whole bunch of your podcasts where you and your guests and your producer, you were giving letter grades.
Yes.
To Team Canada, right? And you had everyone do it, and the range was huge, right? Like
Sure.
some Bs, some Cs, and maybe lower. But what would you have to see, again, as we cast forward to the year to come and the years to come, what would you need to see to have your grade of the team boost a little bit?
So I'm going to be like the teachers that I liked in school, a little bit lenient with some nuance.
Okay.
So what I would need to see for that letter grade to continue to go up as we grade on a curve is for us to continue to have this conversation, for us to keep the same energy, are women who, let's be clear, have been much better than the men.
Absolutely.
Carried our program for a long time and are Olympic gold medal champions. So that is our highest achievement in the sport. They're going to a World Cup this upcoming summer. We've got the men playing in a Gold Cup. So now we expect them to play well, big tournaments. And in 2026, we were, along with the United States and Mexico, hosting the World Cup. So for us to be a football nation, that's not a part-time occupation. We need to care and invest and talk about it all of the time. So I'm hopeful that we keep that same energy that we had with all those people freezing in stands at BMO Field. I think that would make this experience, which at the time when we lost felt like a D or a C minus, be closer to a B or an A.
Gotcha. I'm glad you mentioned women. This moment that you're about to see, I mean, could easily, potentially be the biggest moment that we've talked about yet.
So Women's Pro League in Canada looks like what exactly?
We're going to have 8 teams to start, 4 in the East, 4 in the West. We're looking at having a bit of a designated salary structure like the MLS started, tie that to sponsorship to make sure there's at least 1 Canadian women's national team player per team. On top of that, there's 110 Canadian women plus playing professionally right now, so the target is bring about half of them home.
There needs to be a future, and we see far too many young girls dropping out of sports, and hopefully this can help change that.
My pal Adrian Arsenault on the National breaking the news there with Diana Matheson, Christine Sinclair, the creation of a women's pro league in this country. This took a long time to get to this point. I mean, it's been a long time coming.
Too long. We thought when the women had back-to-back bronze medals that something would come out of that.
Yeah.
It didn't. Your pal, Adrian Arsenault, my foe, because I was professionally jealous that it was broken on the national, but as it should be, because I do think that is going to be a clip that we replay in the archives when the league is here, when the league is flourishing, when other leagues follow that template. Women-led league, looking for women investors, women owners, but backed by the corporate sector in this country. I think that's really important. And look at the halo effect, all of the positive PR that not just those 2 women, Matheson and Christine Sinclair, got, but the corporate sponsors that are foundational partners. So I think we're going to see like things in terms of what happens with a professional hockey league for women in this country where they are able to have a living wage for the first time, a potential league, if not team or teams in basketball. I do think that is going to be the trailblazer where we're going to see other leagues come and follow the same template.
Right. So you're right that this could very well open the floodgates, right, in so many important ways. But, I mean, there's still a long time to go, right? Like the road for this league in particular is still very long. 2025 is, the presumed launch of this. 2023, I mean, like the challenge is huge, right? Like you got to get eyeballs, you've got to get money, you've got to get support, you've got to get players, right? Corral all of that together. I mean, it's ambitious. Is it doable?
I think so, because when you have the money, you can get the eyeballs and the support, and thus the players. You're going to be able to have, great rights deals because they're not actually factoring that into the business plan to start. So they're going to have the exposure. And you're right, 2025 is a while away. But young Canadian girls in high school, in university right now say, oh, wow, I've got a North Star to work towards. Before it was, are you one of the 30-ish women who could be in camp with the national team? If not, get ready to be an IG influencer or a lawyer or a host at CBC, right? But now they're thinking, okay, there's this another league that I can play where I don't have to leave necessarily my backyard, my family. And that's, I think, a big piece where the money comes in. Because you could be, Janine Becky and be amazing in Manchester, or Adrienne Leon and be amazing for Manchester United. But if you can be amazing in your own backyard and have the sponsorship opportunities, run camps in your own backyard, make business ties to set up your post-career life, I think that is compound interest of what these women can do.
We got lots more after the commercial break. Don't go anywhere. All right, welcome back to About That. I've got Donnovan Bennett joining me here in studio from Sportsnet, and we're talking about the big moments, sports moments of 2022, what they mean for the year to come. Let's talk about a pretty ugly moment in a really tough game.
His ability to make adjustments at halftime. To a rolling left with the grain, and down he goes. Slung down at his own 48-yard line. Josh Tupu. And well, we saw last week, and he went down, he got up, it was wobbly, the training staff comes out.
Gosh, so that's hard to watch, right? So Tua Tagovailoa with the Dolphins suffering a concussion there, and you know, a big part of the outrage that this happened to begin with came from the fact that 4 days earlier he'd been playing in a game, took a late hit, looked like he had his head slammed into the ground, went off the field, passed concussion protocol, right? Like he went through, he returned to play, you know, turned out he had a back injury of some sort, but, you know, are these two things connected? And I'm just thinking, like, Donnovan, like, how long are we going to keep having this conversation about concussions in professional sport?
Well, in this sport, for as long as we played the sport, because I think it is an inherent risk in it. And we're talking about that one because it looked bad and because of the history and because, you know, he seemed to be throwing up what looked like gang signs, which clearly weren't. It looked like, you know, he had lost his motor skills.
Yeah.
But on every play, there are defensive and offensive linemen who bang heads, who are having subconcussive hits that are impacting their long-term viability. So sadly, it's part of this sport. What you have to do is understand the risk. And what we need to understand as a culture is how we talk about it. Because it is the invisible injury, literally and figuratively. It's figuratively invisible because Tua's walking around the facility after that game. He feels good. He went back in the game. He played well. Clearly, he must be okay. He's saying all the right things, so we're going to have him play on a Thursday night. Well, it's different. If you break your hand, you're wearing a cast, I can see that you can't help me as a football player. If you just have a head injury, but you can run and talk and watch film, I think you can. So there's a pressure on you to be able to play. And the other literal part of it being invisible is, unlike a broken hand, we can't scan and say, oh, there are the breaks and this is how we're going to address it. We rely on you to symptomatically tell us how you're feeling and be honest.
So is there, like, so what is the hope then for there to be any movement in the needle, right? Like, when it comes to this kind of thing, because like you're absolutely right. There's so much at stake with every game. There's so much money on the line every single bloody time that the pressure's always going to be on the player to get back out there. But surely something can be done. Something has to be done.
Well, in all facets of life, we save people from themselves. We say you have to wear a seatbelt, even though it's uncomfortable. You have to wear a mask to come into this facility to protect each other. This is the same thing. The reason why he was playing 4 days after his previous game is because Amazon paid $1 billion a game to have a Thursday night football package. And now the players want to make a lot of money, so do the owners. But at some point, we have to say no amount of money is more important than your health. So it doesn't make sense for anybody, concussed or not, to play a game in that short a time frame. He did pass the concussion protocol, and he was, quote unquote, able to play, but that doesn't mean that we should be continuing to put athletes in these scenarios.
Okay, let's watch this clip. A giant leaves the game.
Serena's last dance is at an end. Ayla Tomljanovic, the Australian, is the woman to end the fairy tale farewell for Serena Williams here. The greatest of all time now knows that her time is finally up here in New York.
Three-time Grand Slam champion Serena Williams announced, well, I mean, I was going to say retiring, she would beat me if I use that word, though, right? I've heard her say she's evolving. What does her legacy do for, the future of the sport?
There's so much. Let's just start with us as Canadians and the wave of positive tennis that we've seen in this country. And our three best all are part of her legacy. Leylah Fernandez coached her and her sister by her father, learning the sport, didn't necessarily have the fiscal means, but they found a way. Now she's a great champion. Felix Auger-Aliassime, a black player in the sport who saw himself at a high level and saw himself marketable in the sport as well. And then Bianca Andreescu, a player who's not only followed her footsteps in terms of style of play, but in terms of what a tennis player looks like. The body image for women in tennis.
The physicality, yeah.
For so long, yes, has been, you look more like a ballerina. Serena was the first to come and said, no, my body is a tool. Yeah. So it's cool to be powerful and demonstrative, and Bianca is the same way. So we are benefactors of how great Serena was. But I think moving forward, we're going to have a different conversation about female athletes. We saw her as a working mom, which we didn't really see in sport. But there is this thought that, if you're a woman, you can do it all, you can lean in. And that is a great thought and a great book. But the truth is, unlike Tom Brady in football, where he can continue to play, into his 40s,
I was going to ask
Serena,
you about this,
if she wants to play at a high level, she has to make choices that, quite frankly, are not fair.
Right.
But we need to understand that. That's part of her story. And the fact that we're talking about it, the fact that in a press conference, she was asked about balancing breastfeeding and training, I think that's so important because it normalizes that conversation for many women.
Yeah, and yet like never underestimate what this woman can do, right? And so I should bite my tongue for having even thought of framing her evolution as a retirement because I got to ask you now. You brought up Tom Brady. Is there a chance that we could see Serena Williams back on the court, go for 24 grands? I gotta ask.
I think so. Yeah? I would never put anything past her, number one. Number two, I think she might be intrigued to play a little doubles with her sister, Venus, and so we could see her put her toe in the water a little bit. And if she's playing well, striking the ball well, moving well, maybe she enters. Listen, this is someone in her prime who tennis at times was a bit of a side gig, a side hustle. She was into fashion. She's dropping it in Beyonce music videos. She's had so much going on and still been at the top. So I don't think once she's ready, I don't think it's beyond reason that she could come back and give us some more memories.
What a sports story of 2023 that would be, huh?
Yeah.
Donnovan, this has been awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll be back after this with a final thought. Hey, welcome back to About That. So, as I said at the top of the program, that conversation that I had with Donnovan Bennett, we did that just before the new year. And so, here we are. We do want to circle back to the Damar Hamlin story. And Donnovan Bennett, he was watching the Bills-Bengals game last night. And he had this to say. Let's go ahead and put this tweet up. When my brother, Anton Bennett, and I were playing, my mom wasn't sad. When we stopped playing, we're done playing, wasn't sad, she was relieved. After every game, our mood was dictated by the scoreboard. Hers was our health. Her greatest fear was the scene we saw in Cincinnati, praying for Damar Hamlin and his family. The whole reason we wanted to do this episode was because so often, we know sports is just entertainment, but it gives rise to these moments that make us pause and make us think. This is one of those moments, and I know players and people everywhere are thinking of Damar Hamlin right now. Donnovan Bennett on his podcast today, which drops, he will also be talking about Damar Hamlin. Thanks for joining us on the program today.